First and foremost, I want to give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushua, Ba'ashem Makakwadash. Double honors to the elder bishops and apostles of Great Millstone on taught me this truth. Yahweh is this world ignorantly calls God. Yahushua is this world ignorantly calls Jesus. Ba'ashem means the name, Rakah means spirit, and Qudash means holy. And that's on the Paleo Hebrew. Also, I give double honors to the elder bishops and apostles of Great Millstone that taught me this truth. So, going into today, I wanted to go into this right here. This was came out maybe like 5 days ago, going into how Iran's Iraq-Gitshi reveals Turkey's role in thwarting Kurdish offensive. And the reason this is important is because when you look at prophecy, the scriptures talk about how Turkey, being an ally of NATO, the European Union right now, is eventually going to turn on, the NATO and EU and join the Iranian forces. So, jumping down, it says, in a dramatic new twist in the Iran conflict, Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi has confirmed what President Donald Trump has been alluding to for some time. Turkey helped prevent armed Iranian Kurdish groups from opening a new front inside Iran as part of what Tehran says was a U.S.-Israeli regime effort. In an interview lasting more than an hour with Iranian media personality Javad Mulgui on Sunday, Araghchi emphasized the effective role Turkey played in thwarting what he described as a U.S. and Israeli-backed Kurdish insurgency that was to have been launched from neighboring Iraqi Kurdistan. So, that right there tells you that, Turkey is essentially siding with Iran as prophesied. So, in order to, where is this talked about, you have to go into Ezekiel, the 38th chapter, which this chapter is heavy going into, Russia, Iran, and Turkey. So starting at Ezekiel chapter 38 and verse 2, it says, Son of man, set thy face against Gog, the land of Magog, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal, and prophesy against him. Right now, when you go into, what Gog and the land of Magog is talking about, is going into Russia. Right, those nations, if you were to look at a map where those nations were at, it'd be exactly where you see Russia is at today. It says, and say, thus saith Yahweh, behold, I am against thee, O Gog, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal. And one thing also is when you go into that word chief prince, calling, Gog and Magog the chief prince, you go into that word Russia, it goes back to the Hebrew word Rosh. So, right here. Right, Russia, Rosh, Hebrew. So, let's see, Russia, name, origin. Let's search it up like that. Latin, but essentially, it was essentially what I searched up in the previous one. It's not coming up straight. How there's a linguistic, debate between going back to the Hebrew word Rosh, which means chief, chief prince. So, Russia going back to Rosh, getting that chief prince, as it says. So, let's actually go into this right here, academic biblical, and see what it says. Okay. So continuing, it says, And I will turn thee back and put hooks into thy jaws, and I will bring thee forth in all thine army, horses and horsemen, all of them clothed with all sorts of armor, even a great company with bucklers and shields, all of them handling swords. And when you go into, what that's insinuating is how the Most High is going to get Russia back in that war spirit, right, to be fighting these nations. Right now, they're chilling. They're not really on that offensive like in the Cold War. But he's going to put hooks into their jaws. He's going to force Russia to get into this conflict. And that's why, I look at the news. I look at what people are saying. And they're saying, I can't believe it. I can't believe this is happening. And this is a dream. How is it only escalating? And the reason is because the Lord is making it happen. So it says Persia, which is Iran, Ethiopia, and Libya with them, all of them with shield and helmet, Gomer and all his bands, the house of Togomar of the north quarters, and all his bands, and many people with thee. And that's the key point right there. The house of Togomar. Now, when you go into what is the house of Togomar, you search it up right here. Togomar is a biblical Togomar, Wikipedia lineage named Togomar, son of Gomer, widely identified by scholars and historians with eastern Anatolia in modern-day Turkey. Right? So, when you go into the house of Togomar, it's talking about Turkey. That's what it's going into. And how even Turkey is going to side with Russia, Iran in this conflict. So we read it here first, and we're witnessing it live. It says, Be thou prepared, and prepare for thyself, thou and all thy company that are assembled unto thee, and be thou a guard unto them. And that's the thing, is that Russia is going to be the face. Russia is going to be the guard, the one that, stands for all these smaller nations. And we don't see that right now as the case. Right now Russia is fighting Ukraine, in their own thing. But something is going to happen where it's going to unify Russia and Iran, against the Western forces, America and Israel. It says, And after many days thou shalt be visited. In the latter years thou shalt come into the land that is brought back from the sword, and is gathered out of many people against the mountains of Israel, which have been always waste. But it is brought forth out of the nations, and they shall dwell safely, all of them. Thou shalt ascend and come like a storm. Thou shalt be like a cloud to cover the land, thou and all thy bands, and many people with thee. Right, so these nations eventually are going to attack the land of Israel. Right, make it a complete wilderness when you go into what's written. Right, they're going to destroy it with missiles. That's why it talks about covering the land, like a cloud. I always think about the scene in 300 where, the Persian army shot arrows upon the 300, and those arrows were literally covering the sky, as a cloud. So it's that, but by the way of missiles. It says, Thus saith Yahweh, shall also come to pass, that at the same time shall things come into thy mind, and thou shalt think an evil thought. And thou shalt say, I will go up to the land of unwalled villages, I will go to them that are at rest, that dwell safely, all of them dwelling without walls, and having neither bars nor gates. And the land of unwalled villages is America, right? So, while after they finish that, they're going to say, you know what, let's just go deal with America now. And they're going to shoot missiles upon this place also and destroy it. And the reason it's called the land of unwalled villages is because America has all these states, aka villages, but there's no literal walls, right? Unwalled. It's just imaginary lines. So, and the people here are dwelling at peace, thinking everything is a-okay, that America is the power of the whole world and we're untouchable. But soon they're going to find that they are touchable. So, it says, To take a spoil and to take a prey, to turn thine hand upon the desolate places that are now inhabited, and upon the people that are gathered out of the nations which have gotten cattle and goods that dwell in the midst of the land. So destruction, this was coming. And these are the prophecies. And this is what we're literally witnessing right now with Turkey. So, search of Turkey leaving NATO. And let's see what pops up. So it says, first news, Turkey is semi-detached from NATO because of its Middle East, probably says influence. U.S. blocks F-35s for Turkey. Amid democratic backsliding, NATO raises concerns over Turkey. NATO leaders leaving this week's summit in Ankara. Is Turkey leaving NATO? And that's eventually what's going to happen. Okay? So, I think the point has been established, and how let's end it. Habakkuk 2. Habakkuk chapter 2 and verse 3. For the vision is yet for an appointed time, but at the end it shall speak and not lie. Though it tarry, wait for it, because it will surely come, it will not tarry. And these prophecies are happening exactly as they're written. That's what it talks about. At the end it shall speak and not lie. And though it seems like it's taken forever, it will happen. And that's what we're seeing. These things are happening. So I'll leave it there. With that, I want to give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahushua, Ba'ashem, Rakakodash. Double honors to the elder bishops and apostles of Great Millstone that taught me his truth. Shalom to you, like Shalom.